Want a fruit that's truly American? Look no further than the cranberry. The bright red berries were used for food and fabric dyes well before the first European settlers arrived. Cranberries are an important part of the history here and for one particular family.
We landed with the Mayflower in 1620, and the surname Walker came in 1635, and my mother's family landed in 1632. That's hundreds of years of a tradition.
Annie Walker is the owner of Annie's Crannies Cranberry Farm on Massachusetts Cape Cod. It's a unique farming operation dating back before the American Revolution.
With the exception of 36 years, this land has only been worked by the Nabscusset Indian tribe, the Hall family, and the Walker family.
A number of native varieties of cranberries grow in the wetland bogs of Massachusetts. The state has some 14,000 acres devoted to the bright red fruit.
What I grow is called Howes, H-O-W-E-S. The Howesberry was cross-pollinated and cultivated on Scargo Lake here in Dennis in 1847. So when it came time for me to renovate the bog, I chose to plant Howesberries because it's native to here.
Cranberry production here is so rooted in antiquity that even crop yields are measured differently. No bushels here. Think instead of barrels, like those found on old sailing ships.
A barrel is approximately 100 pounds. I think the average for Howes is about 120 barrels an acre. And on my best year, I've grown over 450 barrels to the acre of Howes.
There are two methods of harvesting cranberries, wet pick and dry pick.
The wet-picked cranberries represent about 95% of all the cranberries grown in Massachusetts. They're ultimately going to be used in juice, sauce, sweetened dried cranberries, those sort of products. And it's a 3-day process. The first day they flood the bog, then they drive out with harvest machines, and they literally knock the cranberries off the vines. They float to the surface because they have air pockets inside of them. And then the third part of it, they corral the fruit and pump it off of the bog into the trucks.
Annie, who prefers selling cranberries as fresh fruit, employs the dry pick method using a motorized walk-behind harvester.
It's got teeth on the front, which is like combing your hair. So when you dry pick, you always go in the same direction, around clockwise, and the paddles push the berries up into a burlap bag.
She also uses a two-handed comb scoop for the edges of the bog.
This scoop is from about 1950. It weighs about 3 pounds, empty. And that's all I do. So I go ahead and scoop the edges and rock it forward and pull forward. What it does is it leaves the vine, it pulls up all the runners, and then I go back and I hand prune this with a pruning rake to get rid of these runners.
The crop eventually makes its way to a separator, this one built more than 100 years ago.
This is still how they do them in market, through these separators. There's been nothing new invented since 1905. When they go in the separator, there's bounce boards. A good dry berry bounces. They have chances to hit the board and bounce forward. If they hit the board and it doesn't bounce forward, it will drop to the rotten bins in the bottom. Those actually become juice. So we check the front. This looks like a happy hive. Let's see if they're happy.
With bees necessary to pollinate the cranberry crop, Annie maintains hives all around her bogs.
If the bees don't kiss the flowers, we don't get cranberries. It's that simple.
In addition to established honeybee colonies, farmers here are attracting native bees, butterflies, and other pollinators by growing certain kinds of wildflowers.
Because you don't want plants that are going to compete and be a pest on the bogs. You also don't want them to be in bloom when the cranberries are in bloom.
The bees are happy, we're happy, because they have to pollinate the food source. So if this helps get them through the winter, this will give them a fall honey source for the winter. Then next spring, summer, when my bog is in full bloom, in the end of June through mid-July, then the bees will be happy, they'll stay here, and they'll go out on the bog.
It was fun.
Annie's niece, Molly, is already planning to continue the farm work here. The farm's bright berries, perhaps a metaphor for the future.
Even when I go away to college, I've been studying local agriculture and how it helps sustain and build strong communities, which I think is really important. I'd like to make it more organic. I'd like to even incorporate vegetables.
The best part of this experience is that I'm able to save something that my grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather did and pass it on to the next generation. The best day of the year for me is a Labor Day party where the whole family comes and partakes. And that's sharing it with the family is the best.